for the rest of your life, there's only one movie you can watch, what would that movie be?
Oh, it's a tough one. I really like Shawshank Redemption. It's one that
Ooh, yeah,
I seem to keep going back to when I have a spare Sunday afternoon
yeah.
with not a lot going on.
Yeah, and you know what? You get a lot of mileage out of that movie. It's a long movie, so if you're gonna watch something,
You do.
you get a good amount of mileage out of that. Awesome. So I can confirm that we are actually live on YouTube. So for those of you joining us live, or even if you're watching after the fact, thank you so much. I'm here with Sean LeBlanc, a wedding and portrait photographer based out of Calgary. And guys, I'm gonna show you his Instagram account and his website. Some remarkable images, and he's gonna talk about what he's doing, some of his tips and tricks, the gear that he uses, and some lessons learned along the way. But first, Sean, I gotta ask you, how are you doing in the midst of this COVID-19 situation?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. I've definitely had some weddings that have been postponed. None that have been canceled, which is great, but they've been postponed to later this year and even next year.
Right, right.
But I'm also mentoring other photographers online, so that's really picked up. And so just keeping busy and really having a look at ways I can better organize myself and get ready for when things open back up here.
And we're going to talk about a bunch of things. I want to start with, COVID-19. As this started to come out and as the social distancing thing, and it seems like every day there's, new news. How did you pivot your business? What were some things that you looked to do to sort of, navigate this as best as you can?
Yeah, one of the first things I did was I just reached out to my clients, just to let them know that, I'm there for them and want to be as flexible as possible and realize, we're still getting new information on a daily basis. So yeah, one of the first things I did was I just reached out to my wedding clients and even some of my portrait clients, just to first of all see how they were doing, and they seemed to really appreciate that.
Amazing, amazing. And then as, the weeks kind of progressed, what were you looking to do to sort of maximize this time? Because especially doing photography as long as you did, you probably look at the silver lining. You try to find, all right, how am I going to utilize, this now time on my hand? What did you look to invest that in?
Yeah, so I really wanted to, first of all, learn to do something new. So something that I had been putting off for a while. So one of those things was learning about video. Especially Final Cut Pro and how I could make more, better videos ultimately. But also wanted to do something to help lift up the community. So I did do a few of those portraits from afar where I went out and, had a few clients that I went over to their home, took some family photos for them. And in return, they made a donation to a local charity. So we were able to raise a bunch of money as well. So it was great to kind of give back that way.
Amazing, amazing. Now, I want to talk, and listen, we're going to get to that amazing gallery that you have behind you there because we have to bring attention to that as well. But I want to start off when you got into wedding photography. When did you start? What were some of your first steps as you sort of entered this business?
Yeah, the first thing I did was, well, I had a really strong passion for photography. And so I started practicing on family members. So, I would just offer them basically a free session where, I said to them, I'm not promising anything amazing here. I just want to, practice some skills. And in the end, I'll offer some photographs for you. And they were more than willing to do that. And so went out and, again, built that skill set, which eventually led to photographing weddings. And so that was, probably 6-7 years ago now.
Wow, wow. And, as you sort of progressed, what were some of the early lessons that kind of led to your, the success that you're having now? Was there something pivotal that you sort of learned early on that you still kind of value to this day?
Yeah, definitely being careful about the work you show. So, before I put anything out there, I make sure that my absolute best work is always shown on my website and social media, and just being careful about what I put out there. Oftentimes I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I want to make sure that, when someone's looking at my online presence or, again, my website or social media, they're seeing that, this guy, he's really passionate about what he does, and
Right, 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 right.
that comes through. And so that's something I'm very careful about.
Amazing. And one of the things I was just showing the viewers, your Instagram page as well as your website, and the images are quite remarkable. How did you look to learn as much as you could about the space and how to sort of, which ultimately led to you defining your style? We'll talk about that. But where did you look to learn and accrue this information that led to your success?
Yeah, so I'm a self-taught photographer. I didn't go to school or anything for it, but I spent a lot. I spent a lot of time on YouTube, which is an incredible resource. Also, educational sites, and just absorbing as much as I could, and really was intrigued by off-camera lighting
Right,
and
right.
some of the creative potential that was there. Because often on a wedding day, you're faced with horrible lights and, you're trying to make the best of a situation. And so when you can learn off camera flash and how to use it properly, you can be incredibly creative with that. And I was always drawn to bold and dramatic photographs that just kind of drew me in, the deep blacks, the almost that HDR effect where you can see some of the detail in the shadows,
Right, right.
and bold colors and all of that. And so it was just something I was really drawn to.
I always try to find a good adjective, but I think you have it bold. I mean, that's one of the things when you look at your images and especially on your website, it really does have this bold feel to it, right? It really grabs your attention in one of the best ways possible. I want to ask you, when you were starting off, was there some photographers that you looked up to that you sort of went to for guidance that, either directly or indirectly, you tried to follow in their footsteps a little bit?
Absolutely. I've there's quite a few, but to name some of them, definitely Chrisman Studios. They were one of the when I saw their portfolio, I just went, wow, I want to do that. And
Yeah.
again, was really drawn in by their creative use of light, and same with Davina and Danielle, and of course Two Man Studios.
Right. Too many. Yeah.
So their work just again really drew me in, and kind of made me stop and think about how they were using light to create some of their portraits, and again, it was just something that really grabbed my attention.
Amazing, amazing. And before I continue, I got to give a shout out to Nikon because our friends there were able to set up this. And when I saw Sean's work, I'm like, yes, we have to talk to him. We got to get his story. When you got started, you had a few reps going in. What was, I want to ask you, what was the most difficult point in your business and how did you sort of overcome that to where you're at right now? Was there a single point that was really kind of sticks out?
Well, I've really only been full time for the last 2 years, and so up to that point, I was working a full time job as an engineer in the corporate world,
Right.
and I really liked what I was doing there, but I just had this real strong passion for photography, and was starting to see all these signs that I should really go full time with it.
Right, right.
And so I'd say during that time, it was just balancing. At one point I did 30 weddings in 1 year,
Wow.
mixed with a full-time corporate job,
My
mixed
goodness.
with two little boys at home. So it was just, kind of balancing everything that was going on.
Right, right. So I want to ask you, because I think a lot of people might really, resonate with this, is that you sort of get into photography, you find out you're pretty good, you might shoot your first little event, it's a family event, and then you put that on Instagram and you get bigger and bigger, and they might find yourself at a point where, you're working a full-time job and you have this, pretty lucrative opportunity on the side. When did you decide to make that commitment? Was it more a business strategy that ultimately you planned toward, or was it more serendipitous? How did you ultimately decide to just go full time with this thing?
Yeah, to be honest, it was worlds were starting to collide. And so, when I first started out, as I was saying, I was into family photography, which led to weddings.
Right.
And then I started entering competitions and doing well at those competitions, which led to destination weddings.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to photograph a wedding in Japan in 2016
Wow.
during cherry blossom season, which is, if you've ever been to Japan, it's an absolutely amazing country.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I almost missed it because of my corporate world commitments. And so it was really at that point that I started to think, you know what, I need to start having a serious look at this. And it took me a while to kind of build up the courage because, you know, with a corporate job, you know, you get paid well,
Yeah.
great benefits,
Yeah.
bonus, and everything that goes with it. But I knew in my heart that, you know, I'm a photographer,
Right. Right.
and so eventually I made the jump.
You know, maybe there isn't really a simple answer for this. Well, I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. Maybe there is in your eyes, but you know, how did you sort of mitigate that fear, right? I mean, that's like you said. You know, you get benefits, you get a good, you know, job security there. You have a team around you. You have a people around you, right? Ultimately, when you go by yourself and you start your own business, you know, you're responsible for everything. How did you sort of mitigate the early fear and maybe anxiety as you went into this full time?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And so what I did before I went full time is I learned the business of photography.
Ah,
You
okay.
know, having a photography studio is really only 10 or 15% actual time spent with a camera. And the rest, it's all about marketing, you know, strategies, accounting, all of those things that go into running a business. And so I really wanted to prove to myself that I could hit a few benchmarks in the wedding world
Yeah.
in terms of what I could make at a wedding, but also in the portrait world. Um, and so once I hit those marks, actually blew those marks out of the water. I couldn't believe it.
Right.
I knew I was ready, and so
Amazing.
that's when I ended up building my studio here. And yeah, I just there's a lots of momentum right now, and it's all very exciting. I'm very fortunate.
You can't see me. We had to cut the feed because I don't want to mess with Skype too much, but I'm smiling ear to ear when you said business and marketing because this is one of the things I've been trumpeting for a long time is that, you know, with any
Yeah.
photography business, really, I steal the 80-20, but 20% photography, 80% business and business skills. And your acumen there will ultimately dictate how successful you are as a whole. And, you know, when we first connected and I saw the background and your gallery, I'm like, okay, this guy definitely has some business smarts to him because you know that is the
Well, that's
customer
nice for you to
experience.
say.
That is the business, the client experience, right? And I'll let you talk about this, but I imagine when you bring a client in, especially for the first time, and you show them this, they know you take this seriously. They know that you care, and ultimately, that experience is a taste of what they can expect, is it not?
Absolutely, and that's why, you know, going back to being a bit of a perfectionist in what you put out there. You know, most of my clients are seeing me for the first time on my website or online, um, and so, you know, having a great presence that way and really showcasing that, you know, to use your words, this guy takes this seriously and he's very passionate about what he does.
Yeah.
And then when they come to my studio, it's just, you know, a whole nother level beyond that now, where I've described the experience and what it's going to be like when they come here and see their photographs for the first time in this cinematic premiere on this 150-inch drop down screen that comes down right above me.
Wow.
But, you know, they, until you actually experience that, it's, you know, again, it just takes them to that whole nother level, and they just walk in and they go, wow.
Yeah, yeah. You know, listen, I'm imagining when that setup is done, and you know, well, not done. When that setup is there, and the clients come in to see their pictures, I'm expecting tears at this point. I want people, I want brides and grooms to show up and just see it and just cry. Like, I mean, I feel like it's set up for that.
That's absolute. Yeah, I mean, you know, they're happy
Of
tears. You
course, of
know,
course.
it's it's all about. I love everything that goes into it. So, you know, I take the time to you know, make sure there's a nice aroma. You know, that they're hit with this nice smell when they come in here.
Wow.
Low level music, you know, drinks and non-alcoholic drinks, but you
Yeah,
know, something to drink,
yeah.
and you know, all everything that goes into creating the ultimate experience. And it's again, I just love the whole presentation part of it, and
Amazing.
my clients love it as well.
Amazing. I mean, listen, and it also, it would not be a Henry stream if I didn't ask about your gear. So, what is your key sort of driver for the images that you capture with respect to the bodies and the lenses that you're using?
Yeah, so right now I'm using Nikon D850.
Ooh, nice.
This is my go-to camera. I love this camera, full frame. I use it both for portrait work and wedding work. When I'm using it in portrait, that's when I'll have it set on I think it's 42 megapixel.
Right.
Because as you can see, I create a lot of big wall art.
Right.
So it's great for that. But then also on a wedding day, I can adjust it to 24 megapixel, I think it is, just because I'm shooting a lot of photographs on that wedding day.
Right.
And I've got a 35, so I use a lot of prime lenses.
Yeah.
This is my 35 prime lens. I love how, and I use this for a lot of creative work, creative off-camera flash work, where I want to bring in some of the environmental elements into the photograph, and I find that the 35 is a great focal length for doing that.
Right.
I love the prime lenses because they're incredibly sharp, but also they kind of force me to think a little bit about composition.
Yeah.
When I was using zoom lenses, I got a little bit lazy because I could just zoom in or zoom out. And so with prime lenses, they're again forcing me to think about composition.
Yeah. You really
got
have
a
to
few
move your
other
feet,
things
right?
here.
Yeah, please.
This is 200 f2, the Nikon 200 f2.
Wow.
This is my absolute favorite lens. Incredibly razor sharp. I shoot it at f2 quite often, sometimes f2.8. But I just love the bokeh that you get out of this. There's almost like a 3D effect to it.
I was just going to say, because I was showing your images while you were talking, and I saw, there's some clear shots that look like a 35. They really tell that story. And then there was these shots that had this fantastic compression and then pop on your subject. I'm guessing those are the 200, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and also, this is a great marketing tool, especially at weddings.
Nice.
When you pull this bad boy out at a wedding reception and everyone sees it, they know you mean business.
Right.
And I'll have people come up to me and ask me, about the lens and what I'm using it for and everything like that. So phenomenal lens here.
Fantastic. So what would be the third lens to round out that kit? If you could only take 3 to a wedding day, what would be the third one?
So my third one would be an 85, wow. 85 f1.4. I don't have it here in front of me, but I find that the 35, 85 focal lengths, they're great, in terms of capturing sort of wider angles, but also getting in close. And then when you need to take some of those portraits, some of those family portraits,
right.
Or even during a wedding reception where, you want to shoot over the groom's shoulder to get him in the foreground while his beautiful bride is coming down the aisle. That 85 is a great lens for that.
I was a fan before we started, but now that you dropped the 35, 85, I'm a bigger fan now. I mean, 2 of my favorite focal lengths. Listen, how could you not be a fan?
Absolutely.
One thing I got to ask, and looking at your images, clearly there is a respect to lighting. There is a lot of technique involved in capturing the shots that you capture. So I'll ask this, what's some of the gear that most people don't think about, but in your eyes is critical to the images that you want to capture and that you would recommend for other wedding photographers?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got something here I can show you, is a way to shape the light that's coming from your flash. So what I use is a Magmod filter.
Oh, right.
So yeah, and these are great. They just pop onto a flash. So here I've got a Nikon SD5000 that I use that I can remotely trigger from my camera. And so this just really helps to focus the light. Without this, you're kind of getting light that's going everywhere and it's hitting off walls and everything. But if you can focus that light somehow, it really helps kind of, again, draw the eye, because your eye is always drawn to the brightest part in the photograph.
Right.
And so if you can create that brightest part with off-camera flash, and again, using something to shape the light, it just makes for more of a compelling, bold portrait.
Now, it's a little bit tricky because, well, we're having an audio conversation and we're not on location. But let's just paint a picture here. If you find yourself in this nice scene, you have your couple sort of posed up, how are you moving the light? Where are you positioning it, or where is it pointing toward? How do you go about setting that up?
So the first thing I would look for is a clean background to put my clients on. So anyone that has mentored with me or seen me speak before. I'm all about clean backgrounds, and you can probably see it in my portfolio
Yeah.
there. But that's the number one thing that I look for, because that way, your clients really stand out in the frame, and you kind of getting rid of all of that distraction.
Right.
And then from there, I'm looking at, how can I create some lighting to again draw the viewer's eye in the portrait. And so usually what I'll do is I use a lot of speed lights, so I'll
Right.
have my speed light up high to an angle coming down towards them.
Right.
And I'll just look for things like, too much shadow on the face. I want to make sure that, the bride's jaw is lifted up, and just have their faces turned in towards each other.
Right.
And again, having some way to shape the light in front of my flash so that, you're getting some beautiful light on them.
Amazing, amazing. And is it mainly speed lights you use? Do you use strobes at all? Is there a reason you prefer speed lights over strobes?
So I use speed lights on a wedding day, just because they're small, easy to maneuver, lightweight. I do use strobes, but only in my studio. So I have a
Gotcha.
ProPhoto D2 that I use there, and that's primarily what I'll use in a studio setting.
Right.
But when I first got into wedding photography, I had all sorts of gear that I would bring with me, big strobes, all of that stuff. And now all I'm using are these small speed lights. So these are a bit tricky to overpower the sun on a bright day.
Hmm.
But then I just work with the natural light that's there. So using the shade a bit more, if there's some way to get them in flattering light,
Right.
then I'll just use the natural light that's there.
Nice. I want to talk about how you differentiate your work. One of the things is, again, your images really stand out. How do you go about, iterating and evolving, right? When you go and take these remarkable images with these beautiful backgrounds, such as the cherry blossoms in Japan, how do you sort of one up yourself? Because I'm sure you must think about that and look to evolve your portfolio, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much incredible work out there. I mean, every day I'm finding out about a new photographer that just completely blows my mind, and so, certainly drawing inspiration from photographers online. So through social media, I look at a lot of photographs every day
Right.
and try to decipher, how they're doing that and just kind of draw inspiration that way. But also, just pushing myself to try new things. Like I shoot a lot with two speed lights, but now I'm looking at ways where I can incorporate a third speed light.
Right. Right. Right.
Just to kind of up the level a bit that way. Also, trying new lenses that I haven't used in a while. So I've got a 65 to 35. That I haven't used all that much, because I find when I go too wide, it's just there's too much in the frame. So trying to get creatively that way to kind of make more of a compelling shot.
Right. Right.
But also listening, Nikon right now has some incredible online resources. All the events are
Yeah.
live streamed. Looking to names like Joe McNally, Jerry
Yep.
Guionis, all of these legends. Just listening to them speak, I find it invigorates, my passion, and wants me to get out there and shoot some more.
Yeah.
So
Nikon.
certainly looking to.
Yeah, Nikon was one of the first to sort of open up their resources and offer a lot of free training when this COVID-19 thing happened. And again, I started on Nikon, so Joe McNally was one of the first people I looked up to. And, you talk about
Incredible,
people
yeah.
with decades and decades of information and value that they're out there sharing. So I think it's a great time, like you said, to go and absorb that information and learn, for free to accrue all this information.
Yeah, you bet.
I want to end it off on this. And guys, for those of you watching, we do a follow-up on Instagram where we go another 30 minutes and you guys can participate and ask questions there as well. I'll ask this here, and this will kind of set up our Instagram conversation. How did you look to land your first clients? When you were just getting started, you had the full-time thing, you realized this is a passion of yours, you clearly had some talent that, you can get some gigs and people trusted you. But as you look to book those first few wedding clients, and that weren't just referrals, How did you go about that process?
So yeah, my first wedding was down in Las Vegas. Um, I forget the year, but it was not too long ago. But and they were actually friends of ours.
Hmm.
So I knew, I would say, look to who's close by that trusts you, to have you come and photograph their wedding. And I gave them full disclosure beforehand that
Yeah.
this is my first time photographing a wedding. But gave them, I made them comfortable enough that I knew what I was doing when it came to family photography. And so again, the first one was just looking to family and friends, and I did charge them. So I think it's important to charge.
Right.
Because when someone's doing something for free, they're not as invested as much. So when someone pays for something, even if it's a small amount, just the act of taking out a credit card just makes it more real and makes it much better that way. So I did charge for that first wedding, but also that put the onus on me to deliver.
Right.
So
Right.
I think they paid me $2,000 or something like that. And shooting your first wedding that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so I spent hours and hours and hours on YouTube, and just learning about how to use light and practicing. And I was very passionate about it, still am, of course.
Yeah.
But that just really set the stage that I needed to deliver, and it went really well. I was really excited to be there. I wasn't nervous.
Right.
And it really felt comfortable, to be honest with you, just because I put a lot of work in beforehand, and I was ready.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for that. And again, for those of you watching, we're going to jump on Instagram and do a Q&A there. But before we go, Sean, obviously your Instagram, I have it in the lower third, Sean LeBlanc Photography. You can also go to SeanLeBlancPhotography.com. But you just started a new sort of, well, in a more official way, a new initiative, and that's a mentorship. Can you tell us about that? And for people that want to get involved, where can they find more information?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. So, I just launched a new mentorship platform called Miraki Mentorship. And so Miraki just means, when you put your absolute passion into something.
Yeah.
So I'm a very, very passionate about what I do. And so really want to work with other photographers that are very passionate as well. And so the mentorship's done all online. I was already mentoring photographers all over the world, but this is more of a focused mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Where, because oftentimes as photographers, you hit a wall, or you hit sort of a plateau.
Yeah.
And you don't know where to go, and you really just need someone to help you take it to the next level. And so that's really what the mentorship's all about. And also, if you're a wedding photographer and you've always been interested in doing more portraits, that's part of the mentorship as well. Or if you want to introduce more printed work, or get better at premiering albums and gaining higher sales that way.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of the mentorship is really around the business side of photography.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, guys. Please go follow him on Instagram. Definitely check out the website. And listen, if you have the opportunity and you want to get better, we talk about it often, investing in yourself, investing in education, probably the best things you can do with respect to creative work. So check out that mentorship program. Sean, thank you so much. It's a ton of valuable insight there. And I'll see you on Instagram.
Okay, we'll see you there.
All right.